Hey, Southridge Church Online. My name is Matt. I'm going to be your host here today. Super excited about being here. It's kind of Christmassy. You can see here the campuses are transforming. We're excited about Christmas in the time that all the cool stuff that happens during that time. We don't believe that you're here by accident. Whether it's your first time checking us out online or listening to this podcast or your 1,000th time, God has orchestrated this moment for us to connect. We believe that one of the best ways to do that is to be real and genuine. So let's just be real with God today and interact with Him and allow His presence to come and meet with us wherever we're at, whatever we're doing, listening, driving in the car, sitting in our cubicle at work. We believe that God has orchestrated this moment. Now, there's always lots of stuff happening at Southridge. This time of year just kind of lends itself. It's a busy time of year, even for church. So I want to encourage you to go to southridgelife.com, check out all this stuff, get involved in some of the neat things that's going on. We've got some prayer opportunities coming up. So mark your calendars. This week is Third Thursday, so that's always kind of available for prayer. And then we've got 21 days of prayer and fasting in January. So make sure you go out. There's a lot of stuff online about what's going to happen and prayer guides and just the different services we're going to have. But I want to encourage you to go check out all the details, mark your calendars. Don't forget to be involved with this year's, or not this year's, but 2021's 21 days of prayer and fasting. We also have some New Year's Eve events coming up for the youth. So there's lots of stuff happening. So make sure that you check it out. Now, we're kicking off a new series today with Troy talking about Acts, and finalizing the series in Acts and finish strong. So let's check it out.
Hey, Southridge, want to welcome you again to another version, another installment, another opportunity to join and hang out together online. Really glad that you're here. We believe it's not a mistake, and God knows exactly where you're at. He knows exactly what's going on in your life. He loves you, and so really glad that you're with us today. Hey, I want to highlight something real quick before we jump into the message. We've been talking a lot about kingdom builders here at Southridge. It's a big deal because it allows us to be a church that's influential. And so we've been doing a lot of cool stuff. Man, we had an amazing November with the Miracle Sunday and just people being generous. But during Christmas season and time, we do a thing called Christmas Blessing. And what it is we look for different ministries around the city and a rural pastor in the state that maybe doesn't get noticed, doesn't get recognized for all the great things that they're doing, maybe under the radar, so to speak, and we just bless them. I mean, just financially bless them and just encourage them. And so this week, we made our way and we found Bill and Joanne Kruger, who are retired missionaries, but they lead a ministry here in the city where they train and help credential local pastors and missionaries and people to go into ministry. And a lot of people don't even know they're doing it. So we caught up with them when they were teaching them, surprised them with a check. So check it out. It's amazing. It's cool stuff. Check it out. Well, Southridge, this is Bill Kruger and his wife Joanne. And they have been doing Global University IMS for how long?
8 years altogether.
8 years. So here's what we're here. We're here to bring you donuts, and that's really important, right? I mean, for the whole class. But what we've been doing at Southridge for the last few years is during the holiday season, we do a thing called Christmas Blessing. Okay. And so we kind of scour the city and the state and look for people that are doing really great ministry that maybe not everybody else knows they're doing it. I know that you've been doing this for several years. Yes. Behind the scenes, helping to raise up ministers and missionaries. It's impacted our church. And I know a lot of times you don't get recognized for it. We want to recognize you. We want to bless you. We want to say we're in it with you. We want to cheer you on, you and your wife, and just say thank you. And because of that, we've actually brought you a gift. All right? So here's a check today for you and Joanne for $1,000.
Joanne, please come up.
So,
my goodness.
All right. And this is for you, and that way you can buy as many donuts you want, coffee,
do you think we can handle this, Joey?
Can you handle that?
we're over.
We're gonna share. We can share,
You
right? We
can- well,
share.
yeah, I would share. It makes for a better marriage if you share.
See, all these witnesses out here.
Right,
Make
right,
sure I
right.
share.
So we just want to say, hey, we see you, God sees you, we know you're doing a great work.
Thank you.
And you're
Thanks,
making
Steve.
an impact for the kingdom.
Thank all of you at Southbridge. Appreciate that so much. It's very, very kind of you. And we're never going to forget this.
Yeah, amen. Amen. Isn't that cool? I mean, they were shocked. I mean, when we gave it to them, they're like, really? For real? And you know what's cool is we didn't catch it or say it on the video, but right before that, like maybe 15 minutes before, he was talking to the class there. There's like 7 or 8 students in the class that day. And he goes, well, you know, it'd be really nice if one of you at some point just want to give us $1,000 so we can continue this work. And no sooner than he said that, 15 minutes later, they were show up with a check and he didn't have any idea that was happening. So really cool, really cool. Hey, well, I want to jump in the message, but before I do, I want to pray and ask God just to prepare our hearts that we might receive what he has today in his word. So let's pray. Father, I thank you again for what you're doing through Southridge Church, what you're doing through our lives. Lord, graciously you're moving. And Lord, I pray right now for just that unction and anointing that is already in your word, that Lord, as I present it, that it would pierce our hearts, that it would draw us close, that it would make us change where we need to change. God, have your way. You know exactly what we need to hear, what needs to be said, and so we invite you right now. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Well, today we are kicking off a new series called Finish Strong. It's actually a wrap-up of our 3-year study of the book of Acts. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for 3 years, but off and on throughout the year, we'd take a month here, a month there, a couple months, and finally, 3 years later, we're coming to the end. And how appropriate that we would name the last series in our study of book of Acts, Finishing Strong. And so it's kind of cool. If you've never looked at Acts, it's a very simple story, but a very powerful story of how God is placing or putting within his people, the church, the body of Christ, the Holy Spirit to go and change the world. And so that's the whole storyline. And one of the main characters is Paul, and we're going to see that in just a minute. We're going to catch up with his story. But, you know, this study, it's easy to start something, but if you're like me, it's a lot harder to finish it. I mean, I'm a really good starter. I mean, over the years, I could start a lot of great things. I've got great plans and great ideas, but sometimes I struggle to get to the very end and just finish it well. I mean, if you come in my home, I'm kind of construction kind of guy, and I do projects. And sure enough, you'll find a piece of trim that's been hanging on the floor that hasn't been nailed for 5 years, and there's a door that has nail holes that need to be filled, or there's one doorknob that hasn't been placed on. And I know for my life, I just have to be really honest, I've had to work really hard to finish strong. But what I've realized, here's what I've realized, if I just push in a little bit, if I just give myself a little bit more effort and energy and focus on finishing strong, man, life is a lot better. It's a lot better when you do that. And so this whole series is about us finishing strong and committing ourselves to that idea so that we might not be distracted or detoured from what God has for us. And so I think it's a great idea. It's a great picture for us. All right, here's a key text. Acts 27, verse 25. And we're studying Acts 27 and 28 in this series. But here's the verse. It says, so take courage, be encouraged. So take courage, for I believe in God. And Paul's kind of putting it out there as the bold statement for the 2 chapters that we're studying. And he says, it will be just as he said. In other words, we're going to finish strong. We're not done yet. God's still moving. And I think this is a great text for us right now, especially considering our current situation. I mean, with the pandemic and the elections and all the crazy stuff that's been going on, I think it's really good that we hear loud and clearly what's in this verse. Things like that we would be confident and that we would be full of faith and we would know for sure. You know, he says, hey, I believe God and it's going to happen exactly how he said it was going to happen. That's what he says here. That God is going to do what he said he will do. And really what I think Paul's saying in this verse is God is faithful. Let's hold on. Let's finish strong. He's not done yet. But so anyway, enough said about the key verse. So today, we're diving into Acts 27, 1 through 26. So the first 26 verses of Acts 27. And really what we find here is, again, Paul, the Apostle Paul, he's been taken as a prisoner, and he's coming from Caesarea where he's been, and now he's going to Rome because he's appealed to Caesar, and seemingly he's coming to the end of his ministry, but in reality, God's not done yet. And I think sometimes we need to do the same take on that. You know, sometimes it seems like it's coming to an end, but maybe it's not the end at all, and God's still doing something. I think that's the time that we live in right now. And so he's en route, and they jump on a ship, and they jump on ships, and they're going from port to port to port, and they're kind of like flying an airplane, you know, where you have to go from place to place to get to the one place. And so they're doing that, and along the way, and just think about how our lives work, along the way, there's a struggle. There's a storm. There's an obstacle to Paul fulfilling his destiny, which I think is very similar to our lives, that we're just going through life and trying to get where we want to go, but there's a storm. There's an obstacle, you know. And so the question for us today is simply this: how can we still find our destiny with God even when we face opposition? I mean, how can we do that? How can we finish strong? How can we, when obstacles are coming and things are happening, actually finish strong? Now, here's an interesting point. Nowhere in the teachings of Jesus or in all of the depictions of God and His activity with His people, you and I, does it say this phrase, "Follow me and it will be easy." It's not in there. You can look the whole Scripture. There's promises that God will be with you and comfort you and all that kind of stuff. But nowhere does it say, "Follow me and it will be easy." Matter of fact, if you look very deeply into Scripture, you find out that it's just the opposite. And it says, you will have trouble. Matter of fact, Jesus said that several different times. Not to be a doomsayer, but just to be reality. You know, it's like, hey, you're going to face some stuff. But in the middle of it, in the middle of the storm, in the middle of the trouble, in the middle of the difficulty, God still moves. God still moves, and God is still with us. And I think, wow, that's a great idea for you and I to consider, especially in the middle of everything that we're going through right now. So what's the point for us? I think this is the point. As we come to the end of this crazy year, right? I mean, 2020, I see the guy had a T-shirt, and it just said 2020, and there was 5 stars across the bottom, and it just had one of the stars colored in. I think that's true, right? 2020, 1 star. You know, not great. And so as we come to the end of this crazy year, it's important that remember that God is not done and that we position ourselves to finish strong so we can be ready for all that God has for us in 2021. So that we can be in that position that God could do the things that He wants to do. But to get there, we have to finish strong. We've got to get to the destiny or destination. We've got to find our destiny, right? We've got to make it there. So finishing strong in many ways is maintaining a right perspective and a right attitude. I mean, isn't that life? Isn't most of life just having the right perspective? In other words, you see things the right way. And along with that, you have this attitude that's right. That's you're not, ugly about it. You're not critical about it. You're not crying foul and complaining all the time. You just have an attitude that says, hey, God's still doing something. God's still moving. And so I think that's part of what we're talking about here in this story today, in this text. So today, what I want to do is I want to highlight 3 keys to finishing strong, even when, especially when we face obstacles. So I want to look at those 3 keys. So really, really simple today, but 3 keys. And so let's just jump in, right? Here's the first one. First key, be aware. Be aware, right? So you got to be aware that my circumstances don't always define my destiny or what God's actually doing. I mean, you just have to be aware of that. There's a lot of stuff that's going on right now that doesn't necessarily completely or accurately define what God's doing in our lives. I think sometimes we lose sight of that. We figure, hey, something bad's going on, God's bad. Or, something difficult going on, God doesn't care. And we miss the fact that maybe our awareness isn't where it needs to be, and we're missing out on something. So check out what it says in the story. So again, here's what's happening. Paul's jumping down the coast, and they come into this place where they're trying to get somewhere, and they can't quite get there. The storms are coming up, and we pick up the story as they're traveling. All right, here's what it says. Acts 27, verse 7 through 11. It says, we had several days of slow sailing. And after great difficulty, we finally neared Cnidus. And I'm butchering these names. I mean, why couldn't they just have places like Omaha? Real simple names, right? But the wind, notice what it says, the wind was against us. So we sailed across to Crete and along the sheltered coast of the island past the Cape of Salmon. We struggled along the coast with great difficulty and finally arrived at Fair Havens near the town of Lasea. We had lost a lot of time. The weather was becoming dangerous for sea travel because it was so late in the fall. And Paul spoke to the ship's officers about it. He said, here's what he said. Men, he said, I believe there is trouble ahead. If we go on, shipwreck, loss of cargo, and danger to our lives as well. In other words, he said, man, this is not going to end well. This is not going to end well. Verse 11, but, and there's always a but in Scripture, but the officer my notes are here. But the officer in charge of the prisoners listened more to the ship's captain and the owner than Paul. In other words, he didn't listen. He's like, nah, we're good. We're going on. We're going to do it. And so just a few thoughts. Here's my first notice or a thing that I pull out of this text is in verse 7, there's this small little statement that had great impact. Here's what it said. It says, the wind was against us. The wind was against us. Now, I think a lot of us can relate with that phrase or that statement because I feel like, if we're honest, a lot of us would say the same thing. I feel like the wind's against me. I feel like there's forces pushing against me that are trying to keep me from being the person that I was destined to be or keeping me from the place I was supposed to be. It's like forces are pushing against me the other way. The wind was against us. So I was talking to somebody earlier this week and they said, it's possible that you can actually sail a sailing vessel into the wind. And I'm not a sailor. I mean, I'm from Nebraska. I mean, I've never sailed. I mean, I've been out on lakes and skied and stuff like that. I was joking with the guys a little bit ago and said, the only thing close to sailing I've done is flying a kite. So I have no idea. So I did a little research and found out that you can actually sail into a wind. And it's interesting because the way you do it is you get your sail at just the right angle, like 45 degrees, and then you zigzag into the wind. You don't go straight into the wind, which is interesting. And then there's this very important thing. It's called the keel underneath the boat, that keeps the pressure with the sail and the boat and the water and the wind all together, and it pushes you forward. And so I was just kind of digging into that and learning a little bit about sailing, and it kind of made me think about it in our spiritual lives. Because here's what I think is the point, is that we need to use the resistance to propel us, not to destroy us. We need to figure out how to zigzag and actually get the right angle, get the right degree, if you will, with the wind so we can move forward even though there's wind in our face, even though there's obstacles against us. I think that is a very important picture for all of us. Now, here's a couple other thoughts. Is that opposition, if you're facing opposition, does not automatically mean defeat. It might just mean that you need to change or adjust something so you can find the wind that God has for you. Here's another one. Opposition does not mean that God has forsaken me. Think about it this way. Paul wasn't in a position where God, because of all the storms that were going on, where God was saying, hey, I'm not with you anymore. But maybe just the opposite, that God has not forsaken me. It might mean that God has actually chosen me. And maybe that's the picture that God is really wanting us to understand when we face obstacles. Sometimes the best move we can make to finding or realizing our destiny in the struggle is simply to be alert to the realities of the struggle and to be attentive or to listen for the voice of God in the middle of it. And I think a lot of us, that's what it's all about. So in this first part, and I just want to kind of break it down for just a moment. I want to spend more time on this first point, to be aware. But in this first part of the text, we find a description of the struggle that's full of twists and turns. I mean, it's full of all kinds of crazy stuff, just like our lives are many times, where it's like, man, I can't seem to get going. Things are happening. The wind's coming against me, and all this is happening. And let me just kind of highlight a few of them. There are delays. Bunch of D words, delays. It says that there was slow sailing. It says finally a couple times. It says we had lost a lot of time. In other words, man, it's taking forever. I mean, that's what they were saying. And I think that's what happens in our lives. Is sometimes it seems like life is taking longer than we expected to get to where we want to be. And here's the point, I think. God's not done. Even though it's taking longer, God's not done. Here's another one. There's detours, right? There's detours. That life can lead us to places that we didn't expect to be. I don't know how many times in my life where I'm like, you know what? If you would have asked me 10 years ago if that's where I would be right now, right here in this place, I don't know if I'd even remotely say that. But there's detours to God's destiny. And notice what it says. It says, so we sailed across. In other words, we were going this way, but we decided to go this way. There was a detour to what was going on. This isn't where I planned to be. And here's the point. God's not done, even though there's a detour. Here's another one. There's difficulties. It says great difficulty. The wind was against us. We struggled along. And what's the point? Is the life seems to be harder than we hoped for. And moving forward doesn't come as easy as I thought it would. Have you ever said that to yourself? Man, it just seems hard. It just seems difficult. It just seems like, man, I can't seem to get going or get anywhere close to where I think I should be. And here's the point. You probably know what it is. God's not done yet. God's not done yet. Here's another one. There's dangers. Paul comes to him and you say, hey guys, there's going to be some serious trouble ahead. Loss of like cargo and life. And I mean, things are going to get kind of crazy. And sometimes, here's what I think this says to me, is sometimes we face even seasons of the reality of loss and grief. Even in the point of loss, where a loved one has passed away, or maybe I lost my job, or even there, here's a point, God's not done yet. Even in the danger, even in the loss. One more, is there is this being aware, if you will, of defiance. See, some storms are self-inflicted. Yeah. Sometimes you and I cause the problem. Sometimes you and I, we make decisions that just lead us into the biggest, baddest, ugliest storm you could possibly dream of because we just made a terrible decision. It's a self-inflicted storm. And it comes out of this defiance. It comes out of this, I don't want to do what God wants me to do kind of thing. And that happens. Sometimes that's and some storms, and we got to give the other side of it, are really sovereign moves of God. I can't explain God's sovereignty. Nobody can. But I know that sometimes God will allow a storm to either get us to a certain place or do something in us or accomplish. I mean, God will do that. He's big enough to handle that. And He knows how and when and what that looks like. But to find our destiny in the face of opposition, we have to be aware of the struggle, right? What we just talked about. But we also have to learn to be able to listen to the voice of God in the middle of it. See, I think that's where being aware is so important because we get wrapped up in the danger. We get wrapped up in the detour, the delays, and we don't listen to maybe what God's trying to say in the middle of it. See, God's not done yet, right? So don't throw in the towel or think that God has abandoned you. He might be using the struggle to get your attention. God's not done. I don't know if you're hearing it, but there's kind of a theme here, right? Be aware because God's not done. Notice that maybe your situation is just what we talked about and God's still moving. Here's the point, is to realize no matter what the obstacle might be, God is still able to move and bring us through. That no matter what it is, Paul and those guys, man, they were facing these huge storms. Matter of fact, it gets worse, right? And they're facing all these things. No matter what, God is still able to bring us through. And so what we have to do, this is so important, to be aware, but to listen for His voice in the middle of it. Because God, check this out, He might actually be right in the middle of the struggle. Right in the middle of the struggle is that moment where God shines through in His grace and His power and His protection and all the things that we desperately want and need in life show up in the middle of it. So we've got to be aware. We've got to be aware, all right? Now, here's what happened before we get to the second point, is those on the ship, they're like, man, this is getting crazy. And they didn't have a God factor, I don't think. And they wanted to find shelter for the winter. In other words, let's do whatever we can to save ourselves, which is very familiar, I think, to a lot of us. And so they were waiting at this one port for a favorable wind. And And here's kind of what happens, and just see if this resonates a little bit. They tried to make it on their own. They tried to get where they thought they should be at the time that they thought they should be there, and they tried to do it on their own. And it went terribly bad. In other words, the moment they started trying to make it even be better in their own plans is the moment the storms got bigger and there was gale force winds and there was a northeaster and all these things were finally happening. And here's a little phrase, and I didn't put it in your notes, but it says they gave up. Maybe it was the best thing they could do. They gave up, and it says that all hope was gone. And I kind of like to read into that, thinks that maybe they were right in the position that finally they could hear God's voice. That maybe they could hear what God was actually doing in the middle of it. And here's what happened. Paul, he's watching all this, and he directs their attention back to God, and personally, he finds comfort in the storm as well. So check out what it has. Here's our next point, and that is this, is to be affirmed. Be affirmed. Acts 26, verses 21 through 26. Actually, 21 through 23. It says, no one had eaten for a long time. And finally, Paul called the crew together and said, and this part kind of makes me laugh. He said, man, you should have listened to me in the first place. And you should have listened to me in the first place and not left Crete. And it kind of sounds like sometimes my parents when I was a kid, Troy, you should have listened to me. This wouldn't be such a terrible situation if you would just listen. And sometimes hindsight's easy. So he shares that with them. He says, you should have listened to me in the first place and not left Crete. You would have avoided all this damage and loss. But verse 22, but take courage. None of you will lose your lives, even though the ship will go down. Again, remember what I said, follow me and it'll be easy. That's not part of it. There's going to be trouble. But here's the verse. It says, verse 23, for last night, an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me. It was almost as though Paul was saying, hey, you know what? I've been affirmed that we're right in the right place that God would have us. We just need to trust Him. We're right in the middle of this danger, in the middle of this delay, in the middle of this detour. We're going to be okay. I've been affirmed because I'm His. He's with me. He's with you. We're going to be okay. And there was this affirmation. What does all this mean? I think it means this, that God is always with you, especially when you are doing His will. I just think that sometimes we just need to know that even though all the crazy stuff is going on, if I just remain faithful to the God I belong to, somehow it's going to work out. I can find affirmation in that. I can find surety in that. Having a clear understanding of who I am and whose I am is important to us finding our destiny. See, God reveals Himself to Paul in the storm, in the middle of the delay, in the middle of the detours, in the middle of the danger, in the middle of the defiance, in the middle of all of it, God shows up and says, I'm with you. See, he affirms Paul in the middle of it all. It was as though God was saying to Paul, you are right where I want you. I see you. You belong to me. I got you. And sometimes we need to be reminded that when we're in the storm and it rages all around us, that He is beside us and He is with us. And here, check that out. He's even going to go ahead of us. I mean, all of that is in that little verse. The God that I belong to and the God that I'm serving, He came and stood beside me. I was affirmed. So be affirmed, all right? Here's the third point, is be assured. Be assured. First one, be aware. Second one, be affirmed. Third one, be assured. Assured. Acts 27, verse 24 through 26. And he said, and Paul's still speaking here, he said, don't be afraid. It's pretty fearful. He said, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, Paul, for you surely, and this is what the Lord is saying to you, you will surely stand trial before Caesar. What's more, God, in His goodness, has granted safety to everyone sailing with you. This is what the angel of the Lord is saying to him. Verse 25. So take courage, for I believe God, it will be just as He said, but we will be shipwrecked on an island. So what's all this mean? Here's what I think is happening. See, it's having confidence that God will do what God said He will do. In the middle of the detour, in the middle of the delay, in the middle of the danger, in the middle of the defiance, in the middle of all the stuff that's going on, I have confidence that God is going to do what he said he'll do. It's having what the text says, a surely moment with God. Surely. I'm confident of it. I'm sure of it. It's understanding that God's going to do exactly what he said he's going to do. See, being assured leads to some things. It leads to courage. Being assured flows out of faith and trust in God's ability, not my own. In other words, Paul's not like saying, hey guys, we've got enough muscle to make this happen. But instead he says, no, God's going to get us through this. God's going to make it happen. And just as God has brought me through a storm in the past, he'll bring me through this storm as well, and he'll bring you through it. There very well may be, and here's what I think is the point here, just like he brought us through the storm in the past, there very well might be another storm just around the corner. See, God is always faithful, and the struggle is always here. And here's what we need to do. Just be aware, be affirmed, but be assured of this, that in this situation of the storm, that God is able, and that God is near, and God is going ahead of you. You just got to know that. You just got to know it. So let me close with a couple invitations. One is simply this, is I want to invite those of you that maybe, and I know it happens, maybe the delay, the danger, the detour, all the D things that we talked about have just kind of gotten so overwhelming, you just finally threw your hands up and said, I give up, right? But to give up and not surrender is not a good thing. We're going to talk about surrender next week. But to give up and say, God, I give up and give it to you. That's key. That's key, that I would give up on what maybe I was trying to do or what I hoped it was going to happen, and I would surrender it to you and say, Lord, I want to once again go after the destiny that you have for me. I hope that's you today, and I want to pray with you. And then the other one is this, is I want to invite those of you maybe that are listening today that you're just in the storm. I mean, you're just in the storm. It's crazy. Whatever is happening, it just feels like, man, is it ever going to calm down? And I want to invite you, as you're in the storm, to receive Jesus. See, the Jesus part of this story is he's the one that calms the storm. He's the one that rescues us from the storm. He's the one that's in the middle of the storm. And he's able to do exactly what we need today. So would you pray with me in those two areas? Let's pray. Father, I pray in the name of Jesus for all those that are listening that maybe have given up on their destiny, that maybe have given up on the dream, that maybe have given up but they haven't given it over. That, Lord, right now, by your Spirit, as I'm praying and your Spirit is moving, that there would be a stirring in the hearts of people to pick the destiny up with you once again. To say, Lord, I know that there's detours. I know there's delays. I'm aware of it. But, Lord, I want to receive your affirmation. I want to be sure and confident that you are with me. You're going before me. You got me. Lord, I trust you. And, Lord, I pray also for those today that maybe are in the middle of the storm. Lord, maybe it's raging, maybe it's a northeaster, maybe it's windward, everything's pushing them off course. Lord, I pray in the name of Jesus that they would surrender it all to you as the Lord and King of their lives. To simply say, Lord, forgive me. Lord, I give you my life. I surrender everything I am to you because you're the one that calms the storm. You're the one that's in the middle of the storm. You're the one that rescues me from the storm. And so, Lord, have your way. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless.
Wow. You know, one of the phrases that stuck out to me is my circumstances do not define my destiny or God's activity in my life. God is always moving, and many times he's using our circumstances, what's going on in our lives, to help teach us, help mold us, and help make us into the people that God has created us to be. It's amazing to allow God to know that God is just moving always around us. And many times it's our eyes being open to what he's doing around us. Oh God, I pray, help open our eyes and open our hearts to you and what you're doing around us, Lord, so that we can join in and be the people you've called, destined, and purposed us to be. We need you, Jesus. Amen. Well, we've got some other opportunities to respond to God. We're going to take a few minutes to respond to him and what he's telling you through the message here. I want to take a little bit of opportunity to talk about giving. So we have our tithes and Kingdom Builders offerings, you can go ahead and go to southridgelife.com, select the giving button, and you can give online or you can text to give. All the information is out there for that. Also, if today was, maybe you want to respond and say, Matt, I prayed that prayer with Troy and I accepted Jesus. It's the best decision that you've ever made in your entire life. We want to partner with you on that, in that decision. So you can go out there. There's a button at the top of the page on the home page, and it says response card. And if you select that button, there's some information that we need to get, but we want to partner with you and give you some information about who we are, what we're about, but also about that decision. If you're a guest with us, you can go to that same button and just check the information and pieces and parts that you want to get, and we'll give you all that information. We want to be open and available to you and to give you the information so that you can make the best decision about where you want to plant yourself. Also, I think I mentioned earlier, there's always lots of stuff happening. We've got Christmas Eve service, New Year's Eve things for the youth, all different kinds of stuff. So it'd be great if you just all went out there and checked it out and got to all of the information and details about the events that you want to be a part of. Now we're going to take a few minutes here and respond to God through our worship time and prayer and singing. If you choose, I think the point of this next section is really just to respond to whatever God is talking to you about. So let's take a few minutes and respond to God.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the only name. Jesus, the only one that could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is none one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one that could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show heart and lead me in your love to those around me.
You go before I know that you've even gone to win my war. You come back with the head of my enemy. You come back and you call it my victory. Oh. You go before I know that you've even gone to win my war. Your love becomes my greatest defense. It leads me from the dry wilderness, and all I did was praise. And all I did was worship. And all I did was bow down. And all I did was stay still. Hallelujah, you have saved me. It's so much better your way. Oh, hallelujah, great defender. It's so much better your picked up all my pieces, you put me back together, 'cause you are the defender of my heart. When I thought I lost me, you knew where I left. You reintroduced me to your love, and you picked up all my pieces, you put me back together, 'cause you are the defender of my heart. 'Cause when I thought I lost me, you knew where I left. You reintroduced me to your love, and you picked up all my pieces, you put me back together. Oh, you are the defender of my heart. Oh, hallelujah, you have saved me. It's so much better your way. Oh, hallelujah, great defender. It's so much better your way. Oh, hallelujah, you have saved me. It's so much better your way. Hallelujah, great defender. It's so much better this
We're going to go ahead and sing a new song today, so I want you to get up off your seats and let's have some fun with the song. I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise, treasures of faith, never enough. You came along, put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing is better than you. Yes, I know it's true. Sing it. I'm not afraid. Show
Well, I hope you enjoyed church today. I know I did. It was awesome moments and some great things to think about, and so allow God just in the Holy Spirit to kind of continue to mold and make me. It's a process. It's a process. So I want you to have a blessed and happy Christmas time, Merry Christmas time here during the next few weeks and gearing up for that big day. But bless you, and we'll see you next week.